from the managers Mikel Arteta, followed by Paul Heckingbottom.
He's got a muscle injury, and we expect him to be out for a few weeks. We don't really know still the extent of it, and he has more tests today. But he picked up that injury in training, the last training session, the last kick of the ball before Sheffield. So, yeah, very unfortunate.
Is it the same injury that he'd previously done?
No, it's something different.
And it happened in the training, but he obviously played 5 minutes for you, didn't he, against City, and then he went and played at Ghana. Do you think that might have contributed?
Well, I don't think so. He was coming from a period of absence, and he needed minutes, and he played with the national team, and we tried to be always in touch with them. And then we have 2 games with Chelsea and Seville very, very close, and we decided not to load him on the first game to play him in Seville. And then that happened in training. So sometimes it's difficult. You try to prevent. If we would get injured against Chelsea or against City, we would have said that we have rushed him, But then you rest him and he gets injured. So it's things that happen in football.
Gabriel Jesus, because you were quite concerned, him less so. Has he had a scan, and how's his hamstring?
Yeah, again, the scan showed that there is a muscle injury, and we might lose him for a few weeks again.
So maybe sort of after the next international break we'll see him? Or?
With Gavi, I cannot give you any time frames because he always surprises us. But there is something there. He felt in a really awkward action, and it's true that he had quite a lot of load in the last few weeks with the national team and then playing those games, which he hasn't done in a long, long time. And yeah, that's really bad news for us.
We've spoken a lot this season about how you're in a much better place in terms of personnel and in your mind about trusting others.
Yeah.
So being able to rotate maybe the squad without those players, or looking at these next 2 games, how much better are you feeling about being able to do that, if you like, and particularly the way that your subs have performed?
Yeah, well, when we have 3 big players, now with Jurian, there's a long-term injury, with Thomas, with him. One thing is to rotate the squad, and then the other thing is to have the squad available to pick the right players to rotate them in the right moment, because then you are rotating the squad, for the first game. But after, the squad needs to carry on playing with the injuries. And this is what we want to avoid. But with the schedule that we have, the amount of games that we have is something that we knew was going to happen. It's happening to every club in the Premier League. So there's no difference.
And in a sense, it's maybe happened a little bit to your captain. Is there an idea that maybe he needs a little bit of rest, recovery? I don't know. He's not having the same influence that he would have had earlier on in the season. He set the bar obviously quite high. The last few games, he looked a little bit tired on Tuesday night.
We discussed that to get to the level that they perform and our front players last season. That's just very, very difficult to see. Well, it hasn't happened in the Premier League. So we need to be conscious of that. But that's about form, about as well putting him in better positions and doing things better in certain areas to help him to have the game that obviously helps him to exploit his qualities. And they have played as well a lot of minutes. And that's a consequence to that.
And just finally from me, because we're also speaking to Declan today, you've talked a lot about how surprised at how well he's gone. Does 100 million or so look quite cheap now? And how good has he looked in, particularly the second half when you really needed him, or in the games when you've really needed him to dig deep? How impressed have you been?
He's been terrific for us. And I think he has really perform at the highest level, especially on big games, and that's when you want to see your big plays. And he has to step out there, and his contribution in these games has been really, really important. So really pleased.
I'm good. Good afternoon. Chelsea and Sheffield United are 2 very different teams, but in terms of the performance, what's the biggest area of improvement you would like to see as a collective compared to the most recent Premier League game?
Against Chelsea? Especially the way we started the first 15-20 minutes, especially the way we lost momentum by losing certain very, very key duels, and that changed the shift of and momentum of the game. And then for other periods, continue to do a lot of the good things that we do, but all the time seek to be better, to play better, to be more dominant and as well to be more efficient, especially in the final third.
When you remove their defeat against Newcastle, Sheffield managed to really challenge most of their opposition so far. What do you expect for them tomorrow?
The same, yeah. Looking at when the way they have played against all the top teams and how much they have suffered to beat them, all of them. Some of them scoring the 100th minute, some others really scoring late goals and being really tricky games. So we expect the same. They are fighting for their lives, like we want to win every single game, and it will be a tricky game.
When you look at the way you started the season, you're still unbeaten in the league. What satisfies you the most?
Probably the consistency that we are showing, playing every 3 days in different competitions and maintaining a high level, but as well showing that that is not enough for us, that we want more, that we want to play better, that we want to do things and give no chance to the opponent and keep developing as a team.
Do you feel like comparing to the last season, there's not only more quality in the squad, but significantly more depth?
There is more depth. Obviously, it would depend on the injuries that we picked and where we have that depth, because obviously having injuries in certain line is going to affect you in a way where you don't have the right replacement. But so far we are coping with it. Everybody feels really connected, and everybody feels that they've got a chance, and that's a really positive thing to have in the squad.
Ian?
Hi, Mikel. How are you?
Very good.
Tomorrow's game, how do you guard against complacency? Because Sheffield United have yet to win a game this season. You're unbeaten, flying high. So how do you guard against complacency?
Since yesterday, everybody on their toes. Everybody on their toes. Since they walk in that door, they know what is coming. They know what to expect, and I was very clear with them.
In terms of player injuries, as you rightly said just before, a lot of clubs have got them. Player welfare has been spoken about. The number of games you're playing this season compared to last is vastly increased. Is that behind it, or is there something else?
No, I think there are periods, and sometimes you get really unlucky, and sometimes there are things that are difficult to prevent. When you are loading players more and players that they haven't done it in the past, obviously that risk increases, and we try to manage every single thing to control it. But there are things that are difficult to do, and you have to accept that.
Because it seems that the football calendar will only increase. We're seeing this week, for example, the reintroduction of a game now on Christmas Eve, and while it's only one game this year, it might be a whole fixture list in future. What do you feel about that?
That we will need more players. There's no secret. The players have certain amount of energy, and the battery lasts so long. If not, we will burn them, and we will need more players if that's the case, and we'll have to adapt.
And finally, we saw at Newcastle this week Sandro Tonali getting a ban for gambling. We've seen it with Ivan Toney as well. I'm not going to ask you to comment on that, but in terms of players, they've got a lot more time on their hands now, a lot more money in their pockets as well. If they have problems, are you a manager that they can come to with problems? Do you when you meet a player for the first time, do you say, listen, welcome to the club, want you to play well, but if you've got problems, come and speak to me, so that it's not a big surprise if this sort of thing was to happen?
For sure. I think everybody that is working in the organization are at the service of the players and try to help them in anything that they need in their lives. First of all, we have to look after their welfare. We have a huge responsibility to keep educating them and showing them the right values, and as well communicating and guiding them, and trying to give them advice if they want to. So we always have to be close to support them.
Is that almost as important as the football side?
For sure. And especially when players are coming from abroad, they don't have their families, they don't have their relatives. So they can feel very lonely, and they can have a lot of time to think, a lot of time to make some good or bad decisions, and we have to help them to make sure that they take the right path, and they can have a life that fulfills as well what they need within their age group that they are in.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mark?
Okay. Just going back to Martin briefly. You've taken him off against Chelsea and Seville. Is that because of you've seen a bit of tiredness there, or because of his performances, or is it a bit of a mixture of both?
It can be, obviously. It can be in relation to the performance, can be in relation to the tactical or how the game is shifting to a type of game that I think somebody else is going to be more suited. Sometimes to get freshness in the team, because we have played a lot of games and we need that energy as well in the last few minutes, and that's it.
Yeah, we touched on it, but the criticism that he's getting at the moment, is that because he has set that bar just so long?
Because he's an incredible player that he's done and he's doing so much for us. He's our captain, and we expect him all the time for him to step in like we don't any other players. And this is great because that's the role that he has, and we have developed him into that player, into that person, and now it's about maintaining and sustaining that level, and that's the challenge.
Thank you, James.
Mikel, you said a minute ago that you think we need more players. Do you mean the 25-man squads? Do you think they should be increased?
Well, if we have more games, more competitiveness, and physically the standards are high, we're gonna play more minutes. We have to do that, or we have to, instead of 5 subs, we can have 10. Now the 5 subs is something normal. It was a big fight to go from 3 to 5. So I cannot imagine now a game in the conditions that we are in today after the last year and the World Cup that we didn't have the 5 subs. It would be so difficult, So we would have to think, if the calendar extends, for sure, we have to think about ways of not dropping the quality. And the only way to do it is players have to have certain availability, and you need players to pick.
Is that, you're obviously a lot more plugged into it than we are. Is that a conversation that's going on among managers or, among the shareholders in Premier League?
Well, about everybody, when this is going to stop and how long it's going to take for us to make the right decisions, and the laws will change, and then probably our capacity to do other things during games will change as well. You would have to adapt for sure.
And just obviously, you've told us you've got a couple of players out injured now. But with the signings that you've made in the last couple of windows, do you feel like the squad is you're better equipped to cope with losing everything?
I think so. We are better equipped. I think we have more quality, and we have players that fit what we need and our way of playing.
My opinion, anyone finishing above them this season probably wins the league. So yeah, it's as good as it gets for us. And again, in terms of the challenge, we have to relish it. I think that's, when you're on about the morale and things like that, I think that's easier. But I think when you're playing, you can't always see these moments, opportunities, but they are. You've got to enjoy going to the toughest place and putting in a performance.
Trying to get them to focus. All they can talk about here is Mikel Arteta's hairline. He's perfect.
It's amazing.
It's unbelievable.
Amazing.
Yeah.
He's gifted, but he's a top coach, and
Wait to bring it back. Wait to be
he can do what he
professional.
wants. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, let's talk about the match then. Arsenal versus Sheffield United. Very, very tricky task for Sheffield United. They've lost 5 in a row now.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what happens when you sell 2 of your best players in the summer and you don't replace them with like for like or even better. It's a really tough job Paul Heckingbottom's got at the moment with Sheffield United. Lost Basham as well a couple of weeks ago, which was a bitter disappointment. Someone who's been a stalwart for the football club. And it's going to be a tough, long season for Sheffield United, I feel, and the Emirates is going to be... it's going to be a difficult trip. It's one where I think Jermaine's right. You just got... You just got to go for it, I think, and put care to the wind and just have a go and see what comes of it. Obviously, you don't want to get undone by a lot of goals because then your confidence drops a little bit, doesn't it? So it's that. Just find that right balance. But I can't see past an Arsenal win this weekend.
It's desperate times already. You want to say, early on in the season, but we're in match week 10. Well, just a quarter of the way through the season.
Yeah, it's always going to be difficult for them. New promoted team. Like you said about sending your 2 best players, not replacing them, and then you've got to go to the Emirates. It's going to be difficult. Long periods without the ball. Again, if Arsenal score early, it's going to be a difficult afternoon. It's going to be a long afternoon, but it's almost like a free hit. Nothing to lose. Again, go there and just be positive and see what happens. And as the manager said there, you have to, as players, you have to enjoy going to these places. You work so hard to get promoted, to come into the Premier League, and these are the teams that you want to play against. You want to play against the best players, in the best stadiums. But it's almost like a free hit for me.
It's really hard to do that. I know it's a great idea, and in theory, being a footballer is one of the greatest jobs in the world. But it is hard to do that. It's hard to go there and enjoy, especially when you're still looking for your first win of the season. You've just got 1 point. It's difficult. Every week gets tougher.
Yeah, it does. But one thing you can't do in the Premier League, and I speak from experience here, is let results get on top of you. Because when you let results get on top of you, the Premier League's beating you. It's about literally putting those games to bed, because carrying any baggage in the Premier League doesn't help moving forward. It's about, regardless of what their results have been or how many points they've got in the Premier League table, They just need to think about Arsenal, and then after Arsenal, the next one, and don't carry any baggage, because when you start carrying baggage, it becomes more and more difficult.
Now, from a side that haven't won to a side that haven't lost yet, Arsenal are still unbeaten. That looked majorly under threat against Chelsea.
Yeah, but I mean, we saw last season with the levels that they can go to. I love this goal from Declan Rice, someone who, one of the most important signings of the season. And to show that sort of character and get those late goals. You see the top teams do it. Years ago, Man United do it all the time. They always scored late goals, and then it almost feels like a win when you scored that late goal. But yeah, like I said, last season we saw the sort of levels that they could get to, and they're definitely going to be a strong team this season again.
I think that probably shows their change from last year. Just that little bit of experience. 2-0 down away at Chelsea last year. They might not come back from that, but this year they found a way. And they showed their squad depth as well, with Trossard coming on and that quality nipping in the back post there. But that Declan Rice, it was a special goal, that one.
Yeah, and the leadership he brings as well. When it is 2-0, when they are 2-0 down, when it is backs against the wall, he finds a way to get them back into it.
Yeah, he's a captain. He's just a born captain. His mannerisms, both on and off the pitch. He leads by example. He drags his teammates along with him, and we saw that firsthand last weekend by dragging his team back into the game with a goal that we don't really often see him score. We don't see him score long range goals like that, but always driving forward, always trying to show his teammates the right way, always encouraging. And like Jermaine says, he's one of the signings of the summer, and I think he'll be a massive positive for Arsenal come the end of the season.
Going to look at Mudrik's goal for Chelsea against Arsenal, and I want full disclosure here, full honesty. Did he mean it?
No, 100% not. Because when you actually watch it back, if there's a close-up, you can actually see when you get into this sort of position, you're looking to cross, and he doesn't even look at the goal. So if he says that he meant that, it's unbelievable, because he actually looks into the box where you're going to cross it, and then he sort of like mishits it. And then again, you can see from the celebration, it was almost like, wow, is this going in? And then the celebration, like I meant it. But for me, there's no way he meant that.
Would you claim?
You take it.
If it was you, would you have claimed it?
I'm not having that he meant it at all. But I definitely would have celebrated like he did.
Yeah, he meant it from the celebration.
And so would he as well.
I would have gone like that, like, okay. Like.
Well, the real reason we were having a look at it is because he said he saw Raya off his line.
He might have saw him off his line, but he didn't mean that.
And the bigger question is, this Arsenal goalkeeping situation goes on week by week. We have this discussion. What would you do? Are you surprised that he keeps starting? Do you think we're going to see him start again this week?
Sometimes it's difficult. Like, I remember speaking to Peter Schmeichel on the show, actually, and he actually said to me that he doesn't like the fact that the competition between goalkeepers, like, should have you're my number one, you play every game. Number two, that's just how it's been. But the fact that sometimes, when you've got two goalkeepers competing, when you don't know who's going to play, I think sometimes it puts more pressure on the goalkeeper that's starting. And yeah, of course, he's made mistakes, but at the same time, it's like, that's the situation that the manager's created when you've got two good goalkeepers. But for me, I still think he's going to play.
Yeah, see, I don't think there is a competition for number one spot. I think David Raya is number one.
Yeah.
I think that's how it's been built to get him in the door and to ease tensions in the dressing room. But I think David Raya is number one. And that goal there, I wouldn't really say it was a mistake from David Raya. I think it was a little bit of a freak, in all honesty. But obviously, everyone's going to jump on it with having Ramsdale as number two at the moment. Everyone's going to ask the question. But for me, Raya starts this weekend.
If you're playing Arsenal with David Raya in goal this weekend, you'd be watching out for that and trying that? What Mudryk did?
It's actually a good position, though.
With my left foot from there.
No chance. But when the goalkeeper's position, it's not a bad position.
No.
Because if he stays on his line and the ball goes into the box and someone heads it in, then people say, do you know what, your position's wrong. So the fact that it actually goes in, I think his position's okay.
I think to try that with your left foot from that angle, that trajectory, with the goalkeeper there, there's no way, man. That is like world class. I could, if it was on his right foot, I could understand it, like swinging it into that far corner, but his left foot to fade it away, no way.
No.
Gold star for honesty tonight, Glenn. Thank you so much for that.
And look, Arsenal's level on points with Manchester City at the top of the table, but where did that performance come from?
I think for Chelsea, I think it's been building for a while. They've obviously had I think it's 3 results in a row now, which is something they hadn't done for a while. And I just think Pochettino got his tactics absolutely spot on. I think Arteta was a little bit naive in the terms of the way he set Arsenal up. I thought they were brilliant, Chelsea. I think every single one of them put a performance in that first half. They were calm in possession. There was no kind of gaps in between the midfield, so Arsenal couldn't play through. And in the end, it just felt like Arsenal playing side to side to side and not really getting anywhere. Chelsea took their chances, but obviously Arsenal, that never die attitude, they managed to get themselves back into it. Goalkeeping mistake gives Arsenal that leg up, and then they never looked back after that. But if you're Pochettino, half of you's thinking, fantastic performance, I'm grateful that we're going in the right direction. And secondly as well, you're thinking, how do we throw that away? Because they were in total control.
Yeah, and as you said, it was a goalkeeping error that allowed Arsenal to get a foothold back into the game. But Arsenal have goalkeeping issues of their own. I feel like this is a topic we've talked about and we will be talking about more in the future, because it's an unusual